Welcome to the Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
$11:02. Welcome to the Lock Shop, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. That was a great hangout with Dean Millard in the house with Maddie and Tommy. Lots to discuss from the hangout today. Lots to discuss on the Lock Shop as well. Of course, you can text us anytime, 780-218-9999. If you were watching over on YouTube today, hammer the thumbs up for us. That would be great. EST Parlay is already up for the Oilers game tonight. We're going to get to the full slate in the National Hockey League as well. Probably dive into the NFL just a little bit, see what we got for any line movement there as well. College football game tonight, a big one between Penn State and Notre Dame. We can get into that a little bit as well. On the Lock Shop, we've got two guys in goalie coming up here at high noon. And of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk will start at noon over on the WST channel. And let's bring in Huss from Winnipeg Sports Talk right now. Huss, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing well. What's going on?
Not much. McDavid and Crosby tonight. So that's been the focus of the conversation in this market today, buddy. It's a big one. And the Oilers have owned the Penguins. Like, I'm talking, they've won 7 in a row since 2019 against them. They've won all 7 of them by 3 or more goals, outscoring them 37-9. Like, just an absolute spanking every single time they play. So we'll get into that as we work our way through that. What's going on with you? What's new with you?
Well, we obviously had a little bit of a hiccup in our partner parlay yesterday when that LA Calgary game got postponed. And man, what crazy scenes coming out of Southern California. Oh my God. Which made me have to just dive into that late game last night. And, we were talking about different possibilities for the Panthers. I ended up doing the Dustin Nielson and jumping on them in reg.
There you go.
And then I realized I had my free bet kicking around from football last week, so I ended up putting that on the puck line. So it was a nice night. I ended up paying for a couple of extra wagers for the Sony Open. By the way, and I guess it's off the board because they've teed off. I could not believe the number we got for our parlay.
For the golf parlay.
The golf parlay was insane. What did it ended up being? 14, almost 15-1 for those 3 guys in the top 20.
That's way higher than I thought it was going to be. That worked out really well.
We'll take it.
Golf betting is back, baby.
It certainly is. It certainly is. But yeah, so anyways, it was actually it was a little quieter night. I didn't have to focus on a whole whackload of games.
Hey, how about Chicago? How about Chicago, Huss? Hey?
Well, that as we said yesterday, we have to just stay clear of fading the Blackhawks at home. I mean, having the balls to bet them at home against some of these good teams. I mean, if you got the feeling, I guess go for it. They have stepped up against some top opponents at home this year. But as a Jets guy, I was not upset to see Colorado leave 2 on the table coming up against the last night against the Chicago Blackhawks. It does give us a pretty nice slate tonight in the National Hockey League, and usually the Jets are a Thursday night team. No Thursday night game tonight because the Kings are coming to town tomorrow, and actually, I guess the Kings are flying here today. It'll be interesting to hear kind of what they're all dealing with right now. You do wonder.
We get the Kings here on Monday.
Yeah, they're going to do their little run. But yeah, big slate of games tonight. And you know what? I am looking forward to these college football games. We've got Notre Dame and Penn State tonight, and then Ohio State and Texas tomorrow. And that'll set up the
I dove into that Notre Dame Penn State game. I got a little player prop that I like aside as well, so we can get into that. Just over on the Nasty Chat, hey, if you are, Huss and I always say this, the Lock Shop is about sports betting, but it's about sports in general. And Smitty the Welder says, hey guys, we're having a debate here at work. Who do you think has more value, Elias Pettersson or JT Miller? And I'm thinking he's talking trade value, right? Or that's what I would assume, as opposed to value if you keep them. I'm thinking he's probably talking trade value. Huss, who do you think teams would be willing to give up more to get?
Well, the funny thing is I think it's actually really close. I think
close.
it might be different from team to team.
That's a good way to look at it. Yep.
On the surface, I think, like, put it this way, if you're like Buffalo,
okay,
and you're talking to them, I think you're not as concerned about the higher contract of Elias Paterson. I think you love the fact that he's signed for much longer term. So I think to a team like Buffalo, a guy like Elias Paterson probably has a little bit more. If you're a team that's looking to win right now and looking to have a center that can come in and produce for you and be an asshole every single time you guys take the ice in the playoffs and help you win games that way, I kind of think that probably more teams right now in the short term would like JT Miller. But like everything when it comes to the National Hockey League, how much does the guy make? How long are you on the hook for? What is it going to take to get him? But I do think the ask from Vancouver is probably pretty close on both of those guys. And that is, I think, why they're taking and listening to these offers on both. It's crazy. And we've got a great segment coming up with Dave Pagnotta on the from the fourth period today, coming up on WST, just on the trade bait board and who is there. It is the fact that we're sitting here talking about Vancouver listening on not one, but both of their top two centers is because, I mean,
while they're in a playoff
lineup
spot, like they're in a playoff spot right now.
Absolutely.
Like it's a pretty unique situation, Huss. You're right.
Well, although, I mean, listen, it's sort of PTSD for people here in Winnipeg because it just feels like the 18-19 season. And if you recall that, Winnipeg went to the conference finals, was one of the cup favorites going into the next season, had a great first half of the year, and I believe was second overall as we went into the new year. And I mean, listen, it wasn't as public as the Vancouver thing has been. I mean, the coaches weren't talking about it. The GM wasn't talking about it like's happened already in Vancouver. But it was very clear that this was far from a complete cohesive unit in the dressing room. And Blake Wheeler was a big part of that. He's spoken to it after the fact. Patrick Laine ended up getting traded. But, I mean, it really damaged that team going down the stretch. And they were capable of so much more that year. Ended up fading in the second half of the season. Ended up having to play St. Louis in the first round and ended up losing in a really tight series. And St. Louis went on to win the whole thing. So I'm fascinated by the situation in Vancouver. Although from a Jet perspective, I mean, we're talking about, a second line center, preferably a top four defenseman, ideally on the right side, kind of focusing more on some of the other guys on that list. Brock Nelson, we have a good chat. I mean, the dream would be Rasmus Andersson. If Calgary is willing to trade him, and I guess we'll see. I mean, Calgary's 1 point out of a wild card right now. I mean, they're hanging right in there, and that might be tough to do. But, man, that guy with an extra year of term at a really, really team-friendly contract, I mean, to me, he might be the asset that gets the most in and around the deadline. And to be honest, I mean, if I'm a GM, I'd be doing everything I could to pay that price and get him on my team.
There's an Oilers fan dream up here that Anderson would be added to this group before the postseason, but highly unlikely.
Let me ask you this about Edmonton.
Yeah.
So when you guys are doing your lists and this is who we want, what are the targets? What are the positions that they're looking to fortify? And what does Edmonton actually have to give up? Because I hate to let people know, but Rasmus Andersson isn't coming for a couple second rounders.
Well, look, the Oilers, it's going to be interesting to see how they do approach the deadline because I personally think they need more grit in their bottom six. I think they would probably identify that. They're last in the league in hits. It's not their style, but they're not physical. I think in the playoffs, you could use an option where if you're going to healthy scratch Jeff Skinner, you're bringing in like the exact opposite player, like somebody who can come in and crash and bang. So that's probably not going to cost you much. They've found a little bit of free money so far this year with Brett Kulak being able to slide up and play alongside Darnell Nurse. But the number one target, it has been for a while and will continue to be prior to the deadline this year. It will be a defenseman that can play the right side for you. So That's what they're going to look for. You are right. Other teams, I mean, every team always wants to get their hands on right shot defensemen. It's just how it is. And last year we saw, teams move earlier on Tanev, and that took a big fish off the board last year. So, will they try to be a team that maybe moves earlier on that this year? They don't have their first rounder this year, but they've got all their second rounders for the next 3 years, all their third rounders for the next 3 years. They've got their first rounder in 26 and their first rounder in 27. So they've got some pick capital. Their prospects aren't that deep. So I mean, they would have to heap together a ton of picks, in my opinion. But we'll see. I mean, I don't think they end up getting one of the big fish, but I do think they end up adding to the right side of their blue line before the deadline.
I'm sure Calgary would be loath to help the Oilers out first and foremost. I mean, that might have to be a 3-team deal.
A little trickaroo, yeah.
But you know what? This is part of the damage to the Oilers that the offer sheets did and not matching those. Like, say what you will about what they ended up having to pay and what they could have signed those guys before, but Broberg and Hall, like a team like Calgary, if you're looking for Rasmus Andersson, the ask is going to be probably a younger player from your roster, a first-round pick, and a prospect. And right now, I don't know whether the Oilers have that.
You're thinking
player.
It would have been Broberg, and that's what you're thinking. Yeah,
Broberg or Holloway probably would have been a bit, like that's the sort of asset that I think a team like Calgary, that's kind of looking ahead to the future, would be more in. But I mean, it's not going to be. I mean, that list of guys, like the guys that they signed, Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner and Adam Henrique. I mean, these guys are all on the back nine of their careers, and were signed to come in and help come playoff time. But that young player that the team is willing to get rid of, I just don't know if that's there right now for Edmonton. So I think that does complicate Peter Chiarelli's job a little bit moving forward. I saw Henrique got off the schneid. He'd been quite quiet this year, but he had a couple earlier.
Yeah,
he
only had 3 goals prior to the other night, and he got a couple. They actually put him with Hyman and Skinner, and the line actually looked pretty solid. So,
where are people out on Skinner? Where are people out on Jeff Skinner right now?
Well, the team, they won't play him in the top 6. Like, he's been out of the top 6 for a long time, but he's also 5th on the team in goals. He's got 7 goals, which is actually 5th on this team. So, he's been chipping in a little bit offensively. He's by far the worst plus-minus on the roster. So, we talked about it on Tuesday with Craig Button. Like, they're basically, well, it was funny. I said, it's kind of like you're trying to put a square peg in Skinner into a round hole. And Button said, actually, he's not a peg at all. He's not even a peg. Like, he doesn't think he fits in anywhere on the team. So that's where, now there are some people who are like, you know what, if you want this guy to produce, you brought him in here with these dreams of him being a top 6 forward, play him in the top 6 and see what happens. But right now they've got Podkolzin playing with Draisaitl, and it's gone very well. And the Nuge is usually locked in with Connor McDavid. So there just really hasn't been much room for Skinner up there. So I don't know what ends up happening or how he ends up. But I think he could be scratched come playoff time, which is why I think they need to add a more physical forward that you can throw into bottom 6. We have to remember at some point Evander Kane is expected to play hockey again, and he could add some of that physicality in their bottom 6 as well. So we'll see how that sorts itself out.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, I'm just looking at the Oilers, man. You guys only have 4 double-digit goal scorers this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I did the math before their last game. 56% of their goals have come from those 4 guys.
Draisaitl cruising right now. He's going to be of those 4 or of the 5 blind unders that we took at the beginning of the season. I think Leon's going to be the over. He's going to get the 50 plus. He's certainly. I mean, he'd have to get hurt to not be a part of that. I just compare that to what Winnipeg has going on right now. And
I did the math on that the other day, actually. Yeah, because I looked, I was like, man, I want a comparable, like just because Winnipeg seems to have, in my mind, watching from a distance, a little bit more rounded out scoring. Top 4 Winnipeg scores, I think, had about 51% of their goals when I did the math on it. Because they got a couple guys having really nice seasons too, right?
Well, Scheifele and Connor are both at 23 right now. So, I mean, they've really been
huge chunk
phenomenal together. Well, on that line, I think that line might be the number one in goals, if I'm not mistaken, in the league, because they have 23 each, and then Gabe Velarde has 19.
Oh, they've got to be the number one. I mean, that has to be the top line in the league from a goals produced. Like
that's what 60, 46. So yeah, 65 goals in 42 games between those three guys. And a big part of that is the Jets' number one ranked power play. And that's, I mean, if we want to talk about something different from this year's team to last year's team, I mean, the Jets' power play was basically 24th, 25th in the year in the league last year. They have been number one from day one until right now, still clicking at over 30%. And that might be the biggest difference as to why the team got off to that hot start and why they're able to hang on in first place right now.
Hey, as far as coach of the year, we were asked about coach of the year yesterday, and like where would Knobloch fit? And we're like, well, we don't think he's probably in the top 5 right now. But Washington, Winnipeg. I mean, I would have to think Arneil Carberry are right there. Who else do you think would be in that mix?
I mean, thinking about like the traditional coach of the year is the guy that like, wait a second, how the heck are they doing that? We all thought that they were going to be brutal.
That's Washington, right? He's going to win it.
That's Spencer Carberry. I mean, I think he would be we would be like, well, you know what? And this is a fun conversation to have because in a few weeks, the league's going to go dark for the Four Nations Cup. And then we'll have updated odds on pretty much every single award.
Yes.
I would bet I'll make this prediction right now. There will be a minus sign
in front of Carberry.
Spencer Carberry's name. I mean, Scott Arneil, I think, should get some consideration. And listen, if you recall at the start of the year, so many of the so-called experts were picking the Jets to miss the playoffs. So based on that and where the Jets are, he probably should get some consideration. But then as the season went on, people were going, well, what were we thinking? This is a very similar team to what they were last year, and they were 4th overall in the league. So I'm not sure that is – I mean, listen, Berube will probably get a whole bunch of love.
He'll get some love.
The Leafs have played well, and, you know, we know how Toronto-centric it all is. I mean, listen, what the Wild are doing, I think right now probably deserves some consideration for the guy on their bench. Who else do we have here? I mean, to me, Washington, clear-cut favorite. Berube might get a little bit of love. Scott Arneil should. Maybe Hines. And then, you know what? Cassidy.
Yeah, Cassidy's name was brought up when we discussed this yesterday, too.
I mean, that's a really, really good team that's played very consistent. They are number one in the league overall right now. I think there'd be some love there, but I would think. And listen, Knobloch, forget about it. I mean, as long as he's going into a situation with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, I don't think there's anything you could do as a coach, even if it legitimately is the best job in the league. I just don't think you'll get the credit because of the guys that you're able to throw over the boards.
Yeah, that's probably the right way to look at it. 780-218-9999. Hit us up in the nasty chat. We're going to get to the NHL. We got some nice time today to talk some hockey. We'll get to the NHL slate. Huss, this morning on my show, I put together my top 10 players in NHL history. And the list actually was received somewhat well, to the point where people are like, do 11 to 20 tomorrow. So I'm going to do 11 to 20 tomorrow. And then I might just go on, and we were joking today, and rank every player in the history of the league over the next 20 years. Every single day, just 10 more guys, 10 more guys, 10 more guys. So we did this because McDavid and Crosby are going head to head tonight. So I'm going to give you my 10, and let me know. Actually, there's.
Oh, by the way, I called Stan Bowman Peter Chiarelli. I realized that
I didn't even pick up on that. I didn't even pick up on it.
I saw the welder giving me a shot in the chat. He doesn't know what the GM. I'm like, wait a second, did I? Oh yeah, I did say Peter Chiarelli.
Yeah, he got fired about 6.5 years ago.
Another shorter, bald guy. You know, they sort of look the same, don't they?
Little guy. Had success in other places, has not yet proven it here. Similar there as well. All right, Huss. So do you want me to give you the 10 names I had in there and you can try to guess what the order was?
Okay, yeah. What is this again?
This is my top 10 players in NHL history.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I'm going to give you the 10 guys. You try to guess the order.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go completely random.
Sure.
Gordie Howe, Jaromir Jagr, Mark Messier, Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Orr, Alexander Ovechkin, Dominic Hasek, Mario Lemieux, Connor McDavid. I think that's the 10. Did I miss anybody? I think that's the 10.
1, 2, 3. That's 9.
Okay.
Howe, Jagr, Mess, Wayne, Orr, Ovi, Hasek, Mario, and Connor.
And Connor, yeah.
So that's 9. Did I miss someone?
Okay. Crosby. Did you get Sid?
Oh, Sid.
Yeah, Sid. There we go. I love Big Maple in the chat. Says Gretzky, Solani, and then everyone else. Great player. All right, so what would you do with those 10?
Well, now this is for their career or who?
Yeah, no, not the most talented players ever. The greatest players, however you want to decipher that. Like, if we were looking at the most talented players in hockey history, I'd probably have Connor McDavid in the top 3. He's not in the top 3. I'll give you that. I mean, it's not even close. So,
yeah. Okay. So by the end, he might be.
But he's already got the Art Rosses and the Harts to justify being where I have.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I guess I will say Wayne number 1. I would just put this, the caveat, and this is not to stir up things in Edmonton where I know Gretzky is the guy. I will die on the hill that Mario Lemieux played the game at the highest level. Like, Mario Lemieux at his greatest was the greatest player, the most dominant player that we've ever seen. And it was just the addition of his size, his reach, what he was able to do. But again, he was out. He didn't have the career that Gretzky did. Like, Gretzky's the greatest of all time. So I'll go Wayne 1, Mario 2.
Yeah.
I will go number 3. 3. Well, I mean, I guess we got to have Gordie Howe up there.
Okay.
Gordie Howe. Let's go with. I know you love Ovi, but I don't think we'll get Ovi that high up. Number 4.
This could be fitting.
Geez, number 4. No. And then where does someone have Bobby Orr? I will. It was McDavid at 4?
No, he's not at 4. I had Bobby Orr at 4.
Okay, you did have Bobby Orr at 4.
I had Bobby Orr at 4. No, I had Bobby Orr at 3. Sorry, I had him one spot ahead of Gordie Howe. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
Those top 4 are kind of the top 4.
Until one of those guys kind of pops in. I guess I have to put Connor McDavid behind Ovi and Crosby right now, based on where they are at in their careers overall. I'll go Sid, Ovi, Messier, Hasek, Jagr, Hasek,
and then Connor. He's the last one.
Oh, and then Connor.
Okay, so let's see here. I had Connor at 10 as well. I said, all these other guys have championships. Deliver a Stanley Cup, you're going to move up that list pretty quickly. So I had McDavid at 10. I had Hasek at 8. I had Ovechkin at 9. Crosby at 7. Jagr at 6. Messier at 5. And then Howe, or Mario, and Wayne rounding it up. So
I've got 5 and 6. There's just a little.
I look at that. I personally look at 5, 6, 7 with Mario, Messier, and Crosby as kind of being interchangeable. And then, I love Ovi. I mean, it kind of pained me to have Ovi at 9 where I did, because he's going to be the greatest goal scorer of all time.
I mean, listen, as we get closer to this, milestone, they both have the cup. Sid obviously has more than Ovechkin. But I mean, individually, when we look back at Ovi's career, when he becomes like the all-time goal-scoring leader for the National Hockey League, that'll be we'll definitely be able to make some good debates on who had the better career. even though if you're worried about winning, Sidney Crosby is the guy. And I think I still personally would put Sid above there. But, I mean, what Ovi's doing right now is just simply incredible. I never in a million years thought that he could be as good as he has been this year. Remember his start to the season last year?
Yeah.
I thought he was done.
Yeah, well, he needed to have an amazing second half to get to even respectable Ovechkin level totals. And he did, and it's carried over to this year. I mean,
yeah,
4 days ago, I saw that thing that it was his goals per game was the highest it's been in his entire career so far this season, which I love the fact that he's tracking this record down with some steam as opposed to limping towards it. Like, you can't just sit there and go, oh, wow, he just hung around forever. Like, no, he's having one of the best goal scoring seasons of his career. So
that would have been sad if he breaks the record by playing 70 games and he gets it on his 8th goal of the season, and it's just been hanging around. I mean, this is not it at all.
This is different. I mean, this is a guy who's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Rocket Richard trophies, 3 Hart trophies, 3 equivalent of the Lindsay/Lester B. Pearsons, had the Art Ross, had a Calder, which Sid didn't get because they were rookies the same year, and won a Conn Smythe and got his cup. I mean, that's a hell of a. I mean, yeah, you could move him up as high as you had him. I think even he's going to go down as the greatest goal scorer of all time. So that helps on the resume as well.
That counts for a lot.
A lot,
at least to me.
Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, I could see him popping up ahead of Messier and Yager on that list. Yeah, I don't think that's a crazy.
I mean, individually, listen, Yager has the longevity. So
his peak was pretty damn good too. But then he had those years at the end, right, where it was just like.
Well, the years at the end, what about the years in the middle? Like back when he was like the ultimate degen and basically stealing money from the Caps and the Rangers. Like, there was sort of a real dark period there. Well, and then he went to the Cape.
He left in his prime for 3 years. Like in the mid-ish, end-ish of his prime, he left, which I thought was always kind of interesting.
Those stories about when he was playing in Washington, they would get back on the plane and he'd have another plane waiting for him on the tarmac, and he'd be off to Vegas for the night or wherever. I mean, it was, but he has turned into be the an incredible ambassador for the game. And the freaking guy is still playing in the Czech Republic. You see that? He got his teeth knocked out last week. And
no, I didn't. I didn't.
Yeah, he had an assist and was -3 in teeth.
Still has that huge ass protecting the puck. Hey, that's a big backside on that guy. All right, Pete Surovich over in the Nasty Chat says, Ovi can't even touch Messier or Crosby's jock. So he doesn't see him getting up to that. I mean, I think it's legitimate when you talk about the Ovechkin Crosby thing. I mean, if you go look at it, Alexander Ovechkin has collected more personal accolades than Sidney Crosby and did end up winning a Stanley Cup. I mean, yeah.
I mean, listen, he's going to go down as the greatest goal scorer of the history of the National Hockey League. And the goal of a hockey game is to score more goals than the other team. I mean, it's not easy. And it's a hell of a lot harder than that than a second assist, which are taught. Now, I'm not saying that these guys have padded stats or anything like that. I mean, we're talking about the greatest to ever do it. But I do think, and I mean, listen, I know there's a lot of people that don't like OV for some of the friends that he keeps and those sort of things, but you have to recognize that the most difficult thing to do in the National Hockey League is score goals. And when it's all said and done, he's going to have done it more than anybody ever has in NHL history. So I think history will be kind to Ovi once he breaks the record, when we're talking about this pantheon of all-time greats. And I do wonder, I mean, Bobby Orr was such a unique and special player. I mean, I never saw him play. I mean, Gordie Howe as well. I mean, I have a vague recollection of him playing with his sons, Marty and Mark, on the Whalers. But, didn't see him there. But again, the numbers speak for themselves. The one thing I'll say is that the league, the players, everything is so much better now. It is difficult to compare the eras. I always wonder, like, what would Gretzky be like today in today's NHL? He's got the, unheard of vision, brains for the game, but does just the hyper speed of today's game change things enough that Gretzky would have been a different player? I don't know. It's a fun hypothetical to talk about. But I mean, I'll say this. I don't think there's never been a Connor McDavid before.
Yeah. Or if you go and put prime Ovechkin in the 80s with how quick he moved and how big he was.
Goals, 150 goals a season.
Yeah, it's just so tough to compare eras in the National Hockey League. It really is.
Like when if Brett Hull was popping 80 in a season, what did he get one year? 84 or something
82,
like that?
I think off the 82? Top of the dome, as I learned to say properly today, I think it was 82. I might be wrong. 86. I think it was 86.
86, that's it.
I think it was 86, yeah.
Like Brett Hull was an all-world sniper. Ovi's the best to ever do it. So yeah, I mean, if you put Ovechkin back in that days, you're talking about triple-digit goals in a season. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But yeah, no, these are fun
discussions.
These are fun combos. Hey, listen, before we kind of dive into the hockey slate tonight, let's quickly head over to the National Football League. We can check in on these lines, but we do have some news. Zay Flowers, their Pro Bowl wide receiver, ruled out versus the Steelers. He got injured last week in that game. And, it was funny because Rashad Bateman took an absolutely hellacious hit. And I thought they'd be worried about him. And then Zay Flowers is out. And Flowers is a real difference maker for Baltimore. I mean, we focus a lot in on the running game. But Pittsburgh's going to be doing that too. Now, Lamar had this unbelievable season with the 41 TDs and the 4 or 5 picks, whatever it was. Zay Flowers, first ever Pro Bowl receiver for the Ravens, I believe as well. He's a huge part of that. And, I mean, listen, he had his tough moment in the AFC Championship game last year when L'Jarius Sneed punched that ball out on the 1 yard line before he was going in on maybe the turning point of the entire game. But I don't think there's any doubt that the passing game of the Ravens is far more dangerous with Zay Flowers in. So they got to find a way to win this game, and then they got to find a way to have him ready to go for what is expected to be a matchup against the Buffalo Bills. Because if it is Buffalo-Baltimore playing in Buffalo, the Ravens are going to need all hands on deck. I know they smashed the Bills earlier. That was like 3 months ago. Buffalo's offense is in a different spot right now. I still wonder about their defense. But just for this game right now, we've talked about how, I know it's a 10-point spread, but Pittsburgh, Baltimore, these games are close. Not having a difference maker like that could end up being impactful.
And the flip around on the other side, I was listening to EST Afternoons with Hernan Salas and Joaquin Gage yesterday, and they were chatting with a guy out of Pittsburgh. And he talked about Pittsburgh's offense has sucked for the last 3, 4, 5 weeks. And that's because they haven't had George Pickens. And George Pickens is going to play in this football game. So
Pickens played against Cincinnati. He was horrible. He was so bad in that game. I mean, like he didn't catch anything. I mean, that guy is such a head case. I mean, we should do, speaking of ranking players, we should do a top 10 power poll of the biggest head case receivers in the National Football League. And George Pickens would absolutely be top 5.
With Tyreek Hill, for sure. Oh. And who else would we throw in there?
Turix, right off the bat, right now, I think you definitely put in Brandon Ayuk. I know we didn't see much of him, but you think about everything that he went through. Tyreek Hill, 100% on that list. Pickens, right at the top of that list. Who do we have? Atlanta. Well, I mean, listen, and then there's a bunch of other names that, we've seen kind of diva types in the past. I mean, OBJ is still kicking around. He's not as relevant anymore, so you sort of can't get away with a lot of that stuff. All time, I mean, shout out to CT ESPN. AB would certainly be there. Deontay Johnson probably is one of them. Every time he gets traded to a team, he just refuses to play. I mean, he's bounced around the league this year. The guy very, very talented, doesn't seem to want to play for anyone. So that'll be maybe the off week for the between the Super Bowl, the AFC Championship, and the Super Bowl. We can come up with some fun power polls.
Should be able to do something like that. Hey, what about that line in the Vikings? It's at 1 now. Do you think it moves any further? Is that a pick 'em by kickoff?
I mean, it's basically a pick 'em right now as it is. I mean, the Vikings are minus 116. The Rams are minus 101. What is really
could be a neutral site game.
This could be a neutral site game. Now, listen, the Rams and the Chargers have minimal home field advantage, even when they're at home. This is a playoff game, and I wouldn't be surprised to see plenty of Viking fans travel. If this game gets moved, though, and it's wide open, and they're just, hey, come tickets or whatever, I wouldn't at all be surprised to see a lot of purple. People in Minnesota would be like, oh, this is a perfect excuse to get out of the winter right now and get down to Arizona if we can go and jump on and get tickets. But yeah, no, I don't think we're going to see much moving. Like, I don't think there'll be a big push on the Vikings. So if anything, I think we're going to be around number 1. Like the Rams, I had Zig for Cassie on the show yesterday, the day before. Zig's picking the Rams to win the NFC. They are a dangerous team. Like if they do get going, and we've seen this year after year, Dusty, a team that comes in the 6 hole or the 7 hole gets hot. I mean, I do think the best teams in the NFC are the top seeds, but I don't discount the likes of the Packers, the Minnesota Vikings. And I guess the Rams technically are one of the division winners, but they were sort of that second tier doing it. But I'm fascinated for that game. We haven't really seen I don't think there's been any line movement since yesterday. No. Nope. Chargers are still even money at minus 3. The Steelers are still plus 10 at minus 112. The Broncos are still 9-point underdogs. The Packers holding tight at 4.5. Tampa's the 3-point favorite against the Commanders, and the Vikings laying 1 or minus 116 on the money line. We do have the wild card round specials though.
Oh yeah,
I like playing these, and this is fun. I mean, sometimes they'll have the Sunday specials where you're just picking the Sunday games.
Yep.
But for all 6 wild card weekend games, they're popped in here. Most passing yards: Sammy Darts plus 425. Matt Stafford 7-1, Baker 7-1, Jaden Daniels 8-1, Herbert plus 950, Stroud the same, Jordan Love and Josh Allen 10-1, Bo Nix 11-1, Jalen Hurts 12-1. I might put a little sprinkle down on Baker.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I was waiting. I was like, he's gonna say Baker at 7-1 because that's the first thing I thought.
I mean, it's interesting that Sam and Stafford are the top 2. I mean, I guess Baker is tied with Matt Stafford. But I do think, I think maybe we should learn a lesson from last week's game. I mean, it was the highest total all season long. But now we get to this point. How was the game won? It was won on defense. And the points and the yards that we've been seeing all season long weren't as easy to get come playoff time. The one thing I know about Baker is he'll be slinging it all game long. The thing is they have a good running game, and they will establish that. But Baker has no fear, and I do think that Washington will put up some points. So I think they're going to need to be rolling. Most rushing yards: Saquon plus 235, Derrick Henry plus 290. Bucky Irving plus 525, Kyron Williams plus 550, pretty big gap. And then you got Jacobs and Mixon at 12-1, J.K. Dobbins 18-1, Aaron Jones 20-1, James Cook 25, and Jaden Daniels 40. And then for the receiving yards, Justin Jefferson plus 450, Puka Nacua 5-1, Nico Collins plus 575. A.J. Brown 6-1, Mike Evans 9-1, Lad McConkey 12-1, Cortland Sutton 15, Scary Terry and Devontae Smith and Jordan Addison all 20 to 1. Now, when you look at those, Dusty, I mean, you got we kind of mentioned Baker over on the passing yards. A rusher or a receiver that catch your eye?
Well, yeah, the interesting thing is that the team with the worst rush defense in yards per carry allowed is actually the Commanders. So the Bucks might be able to actually establish Bucky Irving a little bit here. But I mean, if we're going to ride with one, you don't want to ride with the other specifically. I'm just looking at other teams that are playoff teams that are in the bottom part of the league here.
Dan Orlovsky said, he was breaking this game down yesterday, I was watching, and he said the key to Washington being able to stay in this game is handling the Bucks counter run game, specifically with Bucky Irving.
Counter run game. Okay.
That's something that they have not done well this year. And it's something that Tampa does very well. And then if they do that early on and then are really focusing on the run, I think that really does open up those big chunk plays that Tampa and Baker is famous for. But yeah, and Bucky at plus 525 is interesting because I think there's the potential of a couple big chunk running plays coming in that game.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, Saquon and Derrick Henry are sort of in a rarefied air. I think Barkley is going to get plenty of work, especially with the condition of Jalen Hurts. They didn't play him last week. They're not going to take it easy on him this week. So he would be right there. What about the receivers?
Here's the receivers numbers. Justin Jefferson's plus 450. Puka's 5-1. Collins is plus 75. AJ Brown 6-1. Evans 9-1. McConkey 12-1. Sutton 15-1. And then Terry McLaurin, Jordan Addison, and Devontae Smith at 20-1. Probably Puka. I think I like Puka at 5-1. That's not a bad idea.
Puka 5-1. I think my value play is going to be McConkey.
12-1.
He is so good, so reliable, and Justin Herbert absolutely loves him. And the thing is, they don't really have a lot of other reliable
That's the thing. Who else are they throwing to, really, right?
So he gets a ton of looks. He's the most trusted guy there. And I know they have J.K. Dobbins, and I know that, by the way, you see Zeke signed with the Chargers?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Yeah.
Like today?
Yesterday, I think.
I totally missed that.
Zeke Elliott. The Cowboys cut him out of respect to him.
I knew they cut him.
And yeah, he's joined now. I mean, listen, if the Chargers are leaning on Zeke in the playoffs, I don't think that's a good sign. But you got to be prepared. But yes, Ladd McConkey at 12-1. Indoor track too against the Texans. I think that'll be a good spot. But I do understand why Darts, Stafford, Jefferson, Puka Nacua are the top two in both the passing yards and the receiving yards. And that is sort of, although, you know, it's funny, that total is relatively low considering what we're seeing right here. Like, it's 47.5. It's only a half point more than the Broncos and Bills, 2.5 point less than than Tampa and Washington. Something else we could do for tomorrow: pick our favorite over and our favorite under for the
for the 4-man weave tomorrow. Both Coolbet boys are going to join us.
Nice.
That'll be fun.
Well, and they'll have a take on is Patty's team is playing tomorrow night? No, they're tonight. Well, he'll have the prayer circle going already for the Notre Dame Penn State game.
Well, that's the one. Let's just quickly on that one. Did you look into this at all, Huss? Notre Dame Penn State?
I've been listening to a couple pods of how people are kind of seeing this. I mean, really tight game. It's a 1.5 point spread. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like,
it's a money line play, really. I mean, Notre Dame's minus 118 on the money line. Penn State's minus 104. I hopped into it a little bit. I got one player prop I like, and that's Nicholas Singleton, over 26.5 receiving yards. Most of his receiving yards this year for Penn State have come in their most difficult tests, when their quarterback is being pressured heavily. And I think Notre Dame is going to be able to get that pressure. So if you look at, he had 342 receiving yards this season, but the majority of them came against USC, Wisconsin, Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. So his number set at 26.5 at Coolbet. I've seen it up to 27.5 in other places. So I like Nicholas Singleton over 26.5 receiving yards. And then I am going to get on Notre Dame. I somewhat hastily adopted them as my college football team when I was doing, I was taking people.
Remember that?
Yeah, remember I was like, I'm in for Notre Dame. I used them on NCAA football 25, college football 25, whatever it is. I've got a season going. I'm 7-0. I'm still only 5th in the country. I don't understand the rankings, but it doesn't matter. So I've been playing with them there. So I'm on Notre Dame tonight. But this is why this helped me push me over the edge. James Franklin, head coach of Penn State. I don't know if you saw this. Since 2016. Is 1-14 against top 5 programs. Like they've beaten one good team, and that win was in 2016. Since 2016, they haven't beaten the top 5. So
sign me up for the Irish.
Ride with that. I'm going to ride with the Irish here.
Fading coaches that can't come up with the big I'm great. One guy to look for tonight. Fell in love with this guy in the Big Ten championship game. Was watching in Minneapolis when we were down there for a Vikings game. Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. His total is 63.5. This guy, he will be a first rounder. I'm trying to manifest a way that the Chiefs can get him to take over for Travis Kelce, who could very well be playing his final few games in the NFL. He is, he is that next level of tight end that, can do it all. Can block as well, but man, a legitimate, big, strong guy that has wide receiver skills. So pay attention for him tonight for you draftnicks out there. 44 for Penn State. But yeah, I'll roll with you. I'm just going money line. Notre Dame minus 118. We'll probably put it in with I guess Ohio State. Wow, Ohio State's a 6-point favorite against Texas, even though it's in the Cotton Bowl, and Texas will have huge support. What's a Notre Dame Ohio State parlay? Plus 168. Maybe we'll roll something like that. A little bit back
I
to
like
back.
Jake. Jake's over in the nasty chat says, guys, I think we have to have a play on every game tomorrow, either side or total, even if it's only a lean. All right, so you can make an official pick or make it a lean, but we have to have something on all 6 games between the 4 of us. Yeah.
Hey, I'll be picking. Listen, we're right now. I think we have to pick every game.
A side on all 6.
Who can? Yeah, where you have to see if we can run the table. The perfect playoffs. It's never been done.
We've had some good playoff runs.
Dude, remember? 2 years ago, we went into the Super Bowl, and both of us were 9-1, I believe.
Yeah, it was something. That was the year I think I finished 10-1.
Yeah.
Like we were both 9-1, but I think we went head-to-head in the Super Bowl. Like that was a hell of a year. And we're not talking money line. Like we were talking spreads.
Yeah, no,
that was a great year.
That was before it was before the Super Wild Card weekend. So that's right, because it was 4-4-2-1. There was 11 total games, and yeah, we were both 9-1. We went head to head on the Super Bowl, and you won. So that was probably the Brady year because I've been pretty good in the Super Bowl the last couple of years for obvious.
Hey, we got to get to the NHL here, Huss. We got 5 minutes. Lots of games tonight. Let's just bring up the board here quickly. If you have any starting goalie questions, you can fire them my way and I'll have them for you. But, I've got an EST parlay up already. The lock shot play of the day is coming up later on. So we can just stay away from the Oilers and Penguins. Mind you, the Oilers have owned the Penguins lately. What other games do you like tonight?
Let's see here. Listen, based on what you told me, I don't mind the Oilers, although at minus 222. That is a little tough. Listen, I think the Dallas Stars are a better team than Philadelphia by a significant margin. Minus 154, I can kind of handle that. They've been playing well. I think they've won as of late. Oh, Buffalo is in Ottawa. Ottawa coming off that loss to the Detroit Red Wings. This is a huge game for the Sens. Don't mind them at minus 159. I see the Devils are in New York against the Rangers. By the way, did you catch that Arthur Kaliev got picked up on waivers by
claimed on waivers.
New York?
Yeah.
What does he have a point total tonight? point total for his first game. I don't see it. I wouldn't mind touching on that if it does show up. We got Seattle in Columbus against the Blue Jackets. Blue Jackets have been sort of good at home. And then, Colorado, Minnesota. Both teams played last night, if I am correct on that.
I don't think Minnesota played last night, did they?
No, Minnesota didn't.
No, and their dog at home, plus 120.
Yeah. Blackwood will be back in the net tonight. They used that guy that we mentioned we'd never heard of, the third stringer yesterday.
Minnesota lost Faber in their last game. He's day-to-day. Kaprizov's on the IR. Spurgeon's on the IR. Jonas Brodin's day-to-day. If you were wondering why Minnesota, with Colorado in the second half of a back-to-back, is a home dog, that would be the reason why there.
Yeah, and I certainly like Vegas at minus 172.
Yeah, I've already got Vegas slotted in. I've got the Sens and Vegas slotted in. It's plus 158. Who else did you say you like? Would be the third team here?
Well, I was thinking Dallas, potentially. Minus 154.
That brings it up to plus 325. Get a boost on it if we like Dallas.
What about Columbus at home against Seattle?
Columbus is fighting for a playoff spot right now.
Blue Jackets have won 3 of their last 4. They just beat the Penguins 4-3 in their last homestand. They before that, they're scoring some goals too. They put up 6 against the Blues, and then they beat the Hurricanes. They're 5 of their last 7 with wins over Montreal, who's been hot. They're the only team that really had beat them in that little stretch. Boston, Carolina, St. Louis, and the Penguins.
And Seattle's lost 8 of 10, 3 in a row.
You know what? If we want, I mean, there are some plus money winners out there. I mean, I don't mind Columbus. Last time we took Columbus too, they came through for us.
Columbus plus 106, Vegas minus 172, Ottawa minus 159, plus 431, buddy. That's the Lock Shop wheelhouse right there.
Let's do it. We'll be getting close to 5-1 with the booth.
Jakey boy, give it to us in the combo cards, man. Blue Jackets money line, Vegas money line, Ottawa money line tonight. 3 home teams tonight to get it done at plus 431. What's coming up on Winnipeg Sports Talk, Huss?
Well, we're going to take advantage of this off day. Well, not off day, but just a practice day for the Winnipeg Jets. It sounds like Dylan Samberg's going to be coming back, which is huge for Winnipeg. We'll get the latest from Jet practice. Dave Padnotta coming on to talk about the trade targets and the board from around the league. Murat Atesh from The Athletic. And our Moose, who had a dreadful December, could not win a game, have had a nice little start to 2025, 2-0-1. So the voice of the Moose, Dan Fink, is going to join us as well after their win last night. And, of course, we'll talk a little bit more about tonight's slate and the NFL when we fire up the Coolbet lines later on in today's show. That's coming up in about 5 minutes over at WST.
And we have 2 guys and a goalie starting in 5 minutes or less right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. Myself, Gager, and Cass locked and loaded, ready to go for you there. The EST parlay is up already as well. If you want to ride with us on that one, the Oilers have dominated the Pittsburgh Penguins as of late. We've got McDavid, 2+ points, a Draisaitl goal, and the Oilers to win in regulation at 4-1. For us, I'm Nielsen. Thank you very much for joining us on the Lock Shop today. Best of luck tonight, and we'll be talking a ton of NFL tomorrow.